I've been thinking about this topic for a while. The whole idea of boundaries is something that I have struggled with my entire life, and I still struggle with it today. But I was watching YouTube this morning, and the algorithm randomly gave me a video by a channel called The Unexpected Gypsy. I'll put a link to her channel in the description below in case you want to check it out. And this video is basically about things that she's learned throughout her life. She's now like 60 years old, and trying to help others learn these things faster than it took her to learn them. And I suppose that's what this video is about. There was a phrase that she used that just sort of gelled in my mind what I really wanted to say about this topic, and that is the sacred no. I have used this analogy before on this channel, but I think it bears repeating, and that is that as I was struggling with the idea of boundaries, because I'm going to be honest with you, throughout the vast majority of my life, I didn't have any. But Henri Nouwen, who I absolutely love as a writer, made this observation. I don't remember what book it was in, but he said that living your life without boundaries is like living in a house where all the doors and windows are constantly open and anybody can just come in and out at will. They don't have to knock. They don't have to ask. They just invade your space anytime they want. That has stuck with me through the years. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about why we need boundaries, maybe a little bit about my own struggle with boundaries. And then we're going to come to the sacred no, and I'll finish telling you the story by Henri Nouwen. So hang around. Boundaries are hugely important emotional barriers that we need to protect our mental and emotional health. That without boundaries, there is no distinguishing between where I begin and where you end. You just sort of meld into my life, and you are a part of me that decides where I go and what I do, how I speak, the books I read, the videos I watch, the movies I see, the food I like. I have no space within myself to decide these things for myself. Someone external to me is making those decisions, and I never speak up to say anything different. Now, this was first really brought home to me when my second wife, Lisa, and I were dating. And I had a book that I wanted her to read, and she had a book that she wanted me to read as we were sort of beginning to talk about turning this relationship into something more than just going out to dinner. My book to her was Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix. I think it's a powerful book. Some people of particular Christian beliefs might have a problem with that book, but I found it to be extremely helpful in determining why we are attracted to people who ultimately rub us the wrong way and how to overcome that. And she wanted me to read the book Boundaries. I don't remember who wrote the book. I'll try to put a screenshot up here on the screen somewhere. The book Boundaries. And the book was just eye-opening to me about how much I had allowed other people to make my decisions for me. My parents, my first wife, my kids, people that I worked with, friends that I had. I didn't really have a sense of who I was as an individual And beginning to set boundaries helped me sort of define where my edges are. It defines what my political views are. It defines what my religious beliefs are. It defines, as I said before, the foods that I like and don't like. It defines, the movies I want to see and the movies I don't want to see. These boundaries set up mental and emotional health boundaries so that you can decide when you want to be uniquely you. And that sort of dovetails into what I was just talking about, is that boundaries help set up your own sense of identity and your own independence. It doesn't mean that, you just say no to everybody and you just go do whatever the heck you want to do without any regard to anybody else. That's not the point. The point is that you begin to establish things about yourself and you ask others to respect that. I think this has been huge for me because I was just always acquiescing to the other person. Whatever they needed, whatever they wanted, I sacrificed my own time. I sacrificed my own identity. I sacrificed my own peace of mind. I sacrificed my own needs in order to meet theirs, hoping that in some way, maybe I would be accepted more, because I've always felt as an outsider in my own life. The problem is that when you just continually give in, they don't respect you more. They just constantly demand more of you. And so boundaries helps to sort of establish this place around you like a wall around a fort that is insurmountable unless you open the gate. And again, this sort of ties right into the next idea, is that setting boundaries can help you avoid conflict and resentment. I have been hugely passive aggressive most of my life. And it comes from this, I think, from this idea that I wasn't willing to set a boundary up front. And so I just allowed people to push into my life and push into my life and push into my life. And I was very passive about it until finally I'd had enough, and then I would get aggressive. That's not a healthy way to live. It's not a healthy thing for relationships. Passive aggressiveness, I would consider myself to be a professional, an artiste at passive aggressive. I had just enough satire, just enough cutting comedy to my remarks to catch people a little off guard, and maybe they didn't really understand how mad I was at the moment. But it all came from just allowing this tsunami of intrusions into who I am to finally come to this place. And if you set up the boundaries and you hold on to those boundaries, you really avoid the need to have to go back and explain why you didn't like it in the first place, or why it upset you that they even asked. And it really can help resolve a lot of resentment and argument and conflict between spouses, between parents and children, between employer and employee, between teacher and students. The gamut is limitless as to how well establishing useful boundaries can be in your life. Ultimately, boundaries are about self-care. It's about making sure that you take care of you before you turn your attention to taking care of others. It's not about selfishness. It's not about being self-centered. It's not about narcissism. It's about making sure that you are whole, or as close to whole as you can be, before you start giving up pieces of yourself to help others. There is a real call for us to help others in our lives. That's not the issue. The issue is, are you prepared to do that without giving up who you are? And I think for a lot of us, that's a hard row to hoe because we are just so used to acquiescing. We're just so used to saying yes. We're just so used to kowtowing to whatever somebody else wants. And we never express ourselves. We never talk about what we need. And we are not practicing self-care. And that ultimately is detrimental to us physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and a host of other whatever alleys you can put in there. They're all impacted by this lack of boundaries. And that leads me to this idea of the sacred no, which is where I want to sort of wind up today. It's not just about saying no. It's about no being a sacred act for your life. Now, I don't know what the unexpected gypsy meant by the sacred no. I can tell you how it resonated with me. I think using this concept that no is the sacred no is about protecting your own identity. It's about making sure that others understand when they start to encroach, and that it is a sacred act for yourself to protect yourself and to protect your identity. Using the sacred no helps you to protect things that are irreplaceable. Your time, your energy, your peace of mind. These are things that once you give them, you cannot get them back. They will be forever gone. And so you need to be able to decide with intentionality and purpose when you will choose to say yes. So for me, and it's still a battle. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's still a battle for me, but I've learned that my first response, at least internally, I don't say it externally, but my first response is no. And then I have this conversation with myself. Why am I saying no? Am I saying no because I honestly don't have the time, or am I saying no because I honestly feel like this is not a good idea for me? Or am I saying no simply because it's inconvenient and it irritates me? And I have to have this conversation about why should I say yes? And sometimes, in fact, most of the time still, I will say yes. But it will be a conscious decision on my part and not just a knee-jerk reaction to a request, which is what it has always been. So the sacred no is not just no. It's about having reverence and respect for what you need to protect in your own life. And I think a lot of us struggle with that. So let me come back to the Henri Nouwen story because I think that it has profound impacts on how we view boundaries. Nouwen says that, as I mentioned before, not having any boundaries is like having the doors and windows open. People come and go any time of the day or night, anywhere in your home. They're free to roam. They're free to stay. There's no time limit. Nobody tells them when to leave. You are just surrounded by them all the time. And when you decide to close and lock the windows and close and lock the doors in order to establish this perimeter around you, this boundary around you, the people who have freely come and gone are going to be angry with you. There's no getting around that. Suddenly, their immense freedom has been curtailed, and it will make them angry. And Nouwen says they will pound and pound and pound and pound on the doors and the windows, demanding that you open up and let them in again. And for the first little while, maybe the first few months, maybe the first couple of years, however long it takes for you to learn the sacredness of no, you're going to have to keep those doors and windows locked until a couple of things will happen. A lot of the friends and family in your life who took advantage of you for so long will suddenly calm down, and they will be open to respecting your new life. And some of your friends and some of your family are going to be so angry that they turn and walk away from you and abandon you. And those are the people that you know only were in your life because they could abuse you on a daily basis. And you will no longer allow yourself to be abused. I know when I first shut the windows and the doors in my own set of boundaries, I said no even when I probably should have said yes. I angered a lot of people because I just kept the door shut. And I wouldn't let them bully me or push me. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. But eventually, that anger subsided on the parts of those around me, and it allowed me to sort of relax a little bit and to then go through the process of learning when to say the sacred yes. The yes that still respects my identity, respects me as a person, respects me as a father, as a husband, as a pastor, as a teacher, as an employee, and even as a YouTube content creator. So I don't know if you struggle with these things or not, but I know that I struggle with them. And sometimes the best way for me to talk through issues in my own life is just to put it out here in the wild for other people to see. If you're having problems with setting aside boundaries in your own life, I highly recommend the book Boundaries. It's quite dated now. It's probably got new editions out, but it's been around for a lot of years. You can find it on Amazon easily. And, you know, if you have other advice for people who are struggling, feel free to leave those in the comments because we could all use some help from time to time. And you probably say something that will help me. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.